Young seeker, your time has come. Gather your little scythe and discover your destiny. The Kingdom of Pomme is the crown jewel of the 7 animal kingdoms, and coveted as the source of our crispy red apples and magic gems. There you will meet animals of all shapes and breeds living in harmony. When you arrive, look towards the foreboding Castle Everfree. The elders say that long ago the sky's brightest star fell where the ancient castle now stands. The star dispersed across the land as gems, imbuing every region with magic. From this power sprung the first apples, which have provided limitless nourishment for animals ever since. From this newly enchanted land rose Pomme, the original animal kingdom. Eventually, its descendants spread and founded the 7 animal kingdoms that now surround Pomme, but we will always revere Pomme as our ancestral home. Each year, the 7 kingdoms send 2 of their most promising young seeker siblings to participate in the Harvest Tournament. The first pair that earns 4 trophies will be crowned the new rulers of Pomme. This has been our way of sharing power over this sacred land. As descendants of a long line of seekers, you and your siblings can trace your lineage back to Pomme itself. Your bloodline makes you capable of detecting Pomme's apples and gems from great distances. With you, always, is your scythe, a seeker's most important tool. Let it help you prove that you are worthy of overseeing Pomme on behalf of our kingdom. Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for joining us. Today we're taking a look at My Little Scythe, a game that is inspired by one of my gaming group's favorite games, sitting on the shelf behind me there, Scythe, a game that we've actually done a deep dive, right for you, wrong for you review a few months back. Now we're covering My Little Scythe for 2 very specific reasons. First off, the expansion Pie in the Sky is now available, which is going to pull in some of the mechanics you might be familiar with from the core game. And if you're brand new to Scythe, the entire Scythe genre as a whole, some mechanics that I think add some really interesting asymmetric properties to this game, or player powers and abilities. And the second reason we're covering My Little Scythe is because I want to give it a swing with this new format we've been playing with. These tighter and introduction to videos designed around bringing people into the hobby, where we set up the overview of the game, give you a sense of how it plays and what it does, talk to you about the theme, because this is still a Quackalope video, and then break the game down into 3 core principles or elements we think really stand out or are unique about it, helping new gamers understand what they're going to be dealing with and what the play experience will be like. And then finally, we'll take those 3 principles and we'll give you 3 other games that maybe do them differently or bring them to a more salient point if they're things that you want to explore in your own gaming library. So, what is My Little Scythe? My Little Scythe is largely a pick up and deliver game where you're racing to complete a series of objectives before other players around the board. Along with that, you're going to have a little mixture of take that elements, where you're able to reposition or steal some resources from other players by engaging in what's called a pie fight. Throughout the course, you'll be going through a action selection style gameplay, where you're going to take your pawn, move over to your player board, and select one of the various abilities you have, either moving, seeking, which is populating the board with more resources, like apples and gems, which will spread out throughout here, or your third action, make, which generates resources you might need, such as additional pies to engage in combat with, or upgraded abilities for you to move and manipulate this board state. You're going to try to be as efficient as possible when it comes to using those actions to move around the board, placing more resources down, and managing your various tracks. You have a track over here which balances friendship. How much have you been willing to give to other players, or how often have you engaged in take that mechanics? You have a pie chart over here which can lead to a trophy, but also is your strength. How powerful will you be if you end up going head to head against someone? And then finally we have our trophy track here. How well are you doing in your goal to obtain 4 or 5 trophies before other players around the board? Now if you're familiar with core Scythe, a lot of these elements will look very familiar. But if you're not, if you're brand new to the idea of Scythe and brand new to My Little Scythe, and maybe exploring if it's a good fit for you and your family, since this is a family-focused game, Let me walk you through a few examples of what a turn or experience might be like. On my turn, I'll look over here onto my board. I'll have the option to move if I wanted, so I could run around the board, or I could move into locations and or carry items with me, trying to deliver them. For instance, one of the trophy conditions is delivering 4 apples and delivering 4 gems into the castle here in the center. I could seek, which will generate more resources on the board, allowing me to roll a certain configuration of dice, each one with a spawning condition. For instance, apples in the blue and gray zones here. Go ahead and grab those, popping them down. Rubies in the red and gray zones. Go ahead and do the same thing. And finally, the quest die, which allows you to put down objectives or quest tokens in certain locations, areas that you can stop on, pull a quest card, and potentially resolve or gain an additional trophy. And then finally, you can do a make action. That is, like I said, generating and balancing the resources that you have on hand, spending apples that you have for additional pies, spending gems for upgraded powerful abilities, such as these cards which can be used in pie fights, or spending apples and gems in order to upgrade the tiles over here on your player board, giving you stronger effects or different types of abilities when it comes to your movement actions, your seeking actions, or your making actions. Now, Pie in the Sky is going to introduce a few other elements or mechanics into this game state here, taking what is a fun, sort of lightweight family game into something slightly more complicated when it comes to moving and how you're balancing the resources. Certainly upgrading what you might have experienced with a younger group to something that you could play as kids grow a little bit older, as your family gets more experienced with what is going on in the board state here. It'll be introducing 2 new player characters, some new asymmetric powers, tokens that give you special abilities that are unique to your player type, and an airship that everyone controls and everyone can gather resources with. You see, on your turn, you'll potentially be doing a brand new seek action. Instead of rolling the standard mixture of dice, you're going to be adding in this little purple trophy dice here, allowing you to move the airship and gather resources that go into your own personal stockpile, the cargo hold here on your special player cards. So when I roll for a move action, I'll also get to move for the amount of trophies still remaining for me to collect. So if I've only collected 2 and I need 5, I can move the airship 3 spaces, stopping on a location and bringing this into my own stockpile. That then allows me to gather in a different way and also deliver or complete objectives in a unique way as well. Instead of having to lug them around with my player character, I can actually take them off the board and store them, not only removing them from the greedy fingers of other players around the game table, but also giving me the opportunity to deliver or use resources anywhere around this board instead of the ones that are just directly on me, meaning I could potentially more easily deliver to the center keep there without putting as many resources at risk. All that being said, let's go ahead and start looking at some of the elements I wanted to highlight here when it comes to My Little Scythe and digging into what they mean. It is a pick up and deliver game where you're racing to complete a series of objectives, doing everything you can to prevent other players from accomplishing those, meaning that you have some take that elements when it comes to player interaction. Let's start with that first term, pick up and deliver. Unlike core Scythe, a lot of this game is going to be focused around managing and using the resources of gems and apples. A lot of your objectives deal with getting to specific locations or delivering bundles of those goods to locations that you need to, such as your quest icons or the castle here in the center. In order to do that, you'll need to pick up and gather resources around your character, moving as carefully and strategically as you can in order to drop them off at the designated spot, powering up your character along the way, but always looking towards that end goal of scoring as many trophies as you can. You see, a pick up and deliver mechanic is going to be where you have a resource at a specific location that you're able to take and deliver for victory points or money or endgame scoring at another location. If you're familiar with the heavier game, Scythe, there are a lot of scoring conditions here that are very familiar to that endgame, such as accomplishing some of these goals, your specific quest abilities, having the most friendship, or having the most pies, so gaining and gathering resources. But unlike that heavier game of Scythe, resource generation and actually building up an economic engine isn't the main focus of this game. Instead, the main focus is going to be a little bit lighter. a little bit more family friendly, right? You're going to be spawning, then gathering, and then delivering these two different resources, apples and gems, racing to complete your objectives. It's the second part of this game. This is a timing or a racing game. You want to keep pace with everyone else around the table. In the core game, the first to score 4 trophies is going to be the winner. Everyone completes their turn, and then you resolve according to whoever hit that end game goal. So you're doing your very best to prevent other players from scoring trophies and taking advantage of the board space as you can with both of your little figures in order to score as many trophies as quickly and efficiently as you can. Now, these trophies can be scored in a variety of ways: pursuing quests, engaging in pie fights, upgrading your own abilities to the point where you're able to maneuver and move around the board as efficiently as possible, and, like I said, gathering resources and delivering them to specific points on the board. All of these are viable paths to victory. So as you're playing, you're going to want to keep an eye on everyone else and what they're doing. At its heart, this is a lightweight, family-friendly version of that bigger box game, with the same style of charts, the same style of player engagement, and the same style of victory conditions. One of the things I'd like to do on the channel at some point is to sit down with my heavy gaming group and just give My Little Scythe a swing, some gameplay content here on the channel. I know when playtesting and figuring out how this game operates, we had a good time throwing pies at each other, grabbing apples, grabbing rubies, and just pushing that win condition. Now, we were potentially meaner to each other than maybe some other players would be. That is the take that element in this game. Take that elements exist in a game when you have an opportunity for not always directly negative, but certainly heavy player interaction. In this game, we are existing in the same state. So I have the opportunity to come steal rubies and gems from you. I can score a trophy if I win a pie fight against you. And that happens by spawning these dials, deciding how many pies I want to throw, adding whatever bonus cards I have available to it, and then flipping and resolving, sending one player back home and leaving the other player there with a brand new trophy and whatever resources were left on the board when the other player had to leave. So there are some head-to-head and I would say potentially mean elements to this game. It doesn't have to be. You can score all of your win conditions without engaging in a single battle. However, if you're a gaming group like mine, engaging in those battles do make this game interesting and fun. Sweeping in when someone's about to deliver their entire pile of rubies and apples to that center location can be a good time. My Little Scythe is not designed to be a game that is supposed to be mean or too heavily take that when players are playing on the board. There are consequences to being too mean to other players. If your friendship meter drops too low, you will start losing trophies. So it's not good to be too mean. And then on top of that, when you spawn resources, placing rubies and apples in a location with another player, giving them a boon, giving them a benefit, actually increases your friendship meter as well. So you're encouraged to both interact with other players in a positive and potentially a negative way, making this an interesting introduction into a take that principle or take that element. It's not all about negative player interaction. Instead, it encourages and facilitates both in a moderate way, and I would say even more heavily encourages positive player interaction than the latter. Now, that being said, with the Pie in the Sky expansion, you're all going to be using this airship together. Everyone is working together and moving this around to collect resources. That also means that you could be positive or negative in the way that you approach this shared resource. Now, there is a consequence to being negative with the ship. I cannot just float above someone and steal all of their resources without paying a cost. And that cost will be friendship. You will lose 2 levels of friendship if you steal from right above another player. So it is possible. It does introduce an element that could be a really funny take that mechanic. For instance, if this guy here was about to deliver the 4 apples he needed to end the game, well, any of the other players could sweep in, pay that penalty in friendship, and make sure he doesn't quite have enough to finish that objective, extending the game and giving other people an opportunity to win. Now, the other thing is going to be these asymmetric or special player powers and abilities. A lot of these also have to deal with player interaction on the board, doing things like placing gems and apples down in a specific location, either giving yourself a boon, or giving something to a friend and giving yourself more hearts or more friendship. And then you also have an ability like Harpoon, for instance, that allows you to set down a specific token on the location with the airship and potentially steal some additional resources for yourself. Still taking the consequence, but certainly designing a card in a way that encourages or potentially encourages some more take that elements in the game. I don't always love take that elements in games. Sometimes, depending on the player group you have, they can feel mean or they can feel a little bit more purposeful and negative. That being said, I think My Little Scythe is a good way to experience take that elements without feeling sort of beat up by them. Everyone's playing in the same state, and this friendship mechanic really does encourage you to be strategic with the times that you actually utilize any of those take that elements. And I know with my core gaming group, the group that I typically play Scythe with, we enjoyed being a little bit ruckus, throwing pies at each other and stealing them from other players. Now, we're the same people that do that in core Scythe, so consider that. If you're familiar with the heavier title, and you're introducing this to new gamers or your family with some younger children, how will they handle some of those similar principles when it comes to a game like this? Whatever the case, that's the breakdown of those three core structures in this game, the kind of makeup or the analysis of what actually exists here. The next thing I want to do is I want to recommend 3 different titles that filter in or lean into those mechanics a little bit more heavily. And we'll again start with the first one, the pick up and deliver mechanic. Now, pick up and deliver here is not the probably main focus of the game. It is a salient part. There is a lot of gather this resource and bring it to a location. However, if you like the idea of a pick up and deliver game, but you maybe want to experience it in a more self-contained or more beginner-friendly way when it comes to that mechanic, look up a small box game called Mint Delivery. Mint Delivery is going to be a pocket-sized pick up and deliver mint tin game, where you're doing your best to bring resources from factories, mints, to different cities around Mintopia, trying to navigate the roads and drop off those mints in order to fulfill contracts. It is, in its truest sense, a direct pick up and deliver game. Now, the second category here is going to be the take that element. And I had a hard time determining what take that game I really wanted to recommend to you all, the audience. And my decision came down to one called Keyforge. This is a deck construction, or I suppose a deck playing game, where you open a pack and you're using the cards you have in order to go to battle with other people who are playing with a stack of cards. It's similar in the lineup of games with Magic and Pokemon. Head-to-head, 2-player combat trying to accomplish a very specific task. In Keyforge, it is accomplish 3 open keys. Now, this is a game that we reviewed about a year ago here on the channel when I was brand new at this whole process. And a game that I've genuinely continued to enjoy playing and opening new packs for. So when it comes to the take that element in that game, the reason I'm recommending it is because the powers and the abilities and the way that those decks chain together as you're using different special faction abilities and resources and managing what you're creating, there are some really rewarding moments where you wipe out the other player's entire defensive line, or you steal all of the resources you need in order to craft the brand new key and win the game at the top of your turn. It has some of the most fun and chaotic take that elements in a game, and I never felt bad playing it. I felt destroyed, I felt annihilated, I certainly felt that my deck did not perform as well as I was hoping it would, either through my draw or through my poor playing ability, but it never felt dirty, it never felt mean, instead it felt fun and powerful. So if you're interested in exploring the take that element, the head-to-head combat element, look into Keyforge. I think it's not only a good introduction into take that principles, but also a good introduction into those deck construction style games, a good kind of pathway into games like Pokemon, Magic, or any of those LGC games, living card games. And the last element here is going to be the race mechanic, racing to complete a variety of objectives. Now, this is one that I don't have a direct game to recommend it for, and that's because so much of this game resembles its parent title, resembles Scythe. right? A game that I have brought to the channel multiple times and that we always, as a gaming group, enjoy getting down to the table. That is the end note of this. If you enjoy Scythe, if you want to introduce family and friends or some younger kids into the mechanics of Scythe, potentially get them to a point where they're ready to table that heavier game with you. This, I think, is a great starting place to experience that. The structure of the game is the same. It's a little bit lighter in some areas, but your action selection, your resource management, your objectives, your race to complete those goals, your foundation of this is all built on that same cornerstone that Scythe established. And I had fun playing My Little Scythe with my Scythe gaming group. It was a lightweight swing into the mechanics that we all enjoy. That being said, I have had some friends who did not enjoy My Little Scythe, but they also didn't enjoy core Scythe. It's not their style of game. So for me, that's going to be the best determining factor when it comes to picking up this game. If you already know and love Scythe, I think you can have fun with this, especially with new players. And if you're just getting into My Little Scythe and you enjoy everything that's going on here, and you've already picked up the My Little Scythe Pie in the Sky expansion, you might want to start eyeing the bigger title. You might want to start taking a closer look at core Scythe, starting potentially with our Right For You, Wrong For You video, where we dive into that otherworldly and a little bit darker and crueler theme. Whatever the case, that's going to be my video, my breakdown. Hopefully I was slightly quicker than I was last time. I'm not convinced I was. I'm still really figuring out this format. I'm trying to get my bearings and figure out how I can talk about a game as thoroughly and efficiently as I want while still making it an intro-friendly video or an introduction to video. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you made it to this point, leave comments down in the comment section down below. I've tried to adapt or adjust based off of the last video I did, and I will continue to do the same, narrowing down and refining this style of video as we progress. Whatever you do though, remember to do the important thing, get out and play some games, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.